Hi, and welcome to this segment of Antique Wax Rubbings. My name is Margot Guerrero. What I have to show you during this video are textile wood blocks from India, carved wood pieces, also from Africa or Morocco, and a Tibetan wedding stick. They're all very special. They are between 75 and 200 years old. Hand carved, just in a time period when such things were just a different time of the world when people took time to create. And this is one here, a spiritual sword of truth. It's very lovely. I don't know if you can see the pattern very well. But what I will do is go ahead and start doing some rubbings just to show how well these convey color-wise. I also have these wax crayons. They are ideal for this application in the arts. They're fairly simple. You need a good hard wax like a Cirencester or gravestonerubbingsupplies.com, a brass rubbing wax crayon essentially. And I have here a piece of antique paper taken from a book. And it's a bit on the thin side, which is ideal. It can move around a little bit when you're working, and it's just really nice to be able to get impressions that aren't always necessarily perfect, although you can do perfect. If you want to clamp them down, you can, or tape them. They have that ability to just convey an older world of when people took that greater time to carve things of very fine detail. So there's a variety of papers you can make note of. Besides antique paper, there's glycine, tracing, sumi paper, black paper, cotton, and silk fabrics. Can be wonderful to experiment with. Here's another one that is this one is a paisley design, and this is a piece of handmade paper I've had for many years. I've saved special for this occasion. And this particular crayon has a sanguine ochre. And so this can be any kind of ornament of page. In sketchbook, journal, you name it. In painted papers, there are a number of approaches, which I'm going to start to show here in another moment. I'm just going to finish with showing what can be done with a variety of just plain papers before I move on to the painted. And it's like any amount of production that you would be doing in the studio. This one is an old Moroccan box. and it just has the most wonderful carving in it. And once upon a time it had some beads strung on it, and I've thought about stringing it up and putting something else extra special on it, but I really like it just as it is, and using it as a tool that it can hold things in it. It's like a box or a little handbag. And you can see the holes on the sides. And once upon a time, I think it had a tassel that hung from the bottom. So it's nice when you're out in a flea market and you can go to places where you can find unusual and tribal and ethnographic pieces that speak to you of, ways that you can just work with creating and being inspired to work when you're ready. Here's one where I did this on a piece of sumi paper, which can be painted over. There'll be some light resist, but I recommend that when you do resist on just plain paper, that you just go lightly, because it can wash over real easy. The best time you can have is when you're doing the paper already painted. Piece of glycine I cut out of an envelope from the post office. This one is an African display board. So this can then just layer over something else with how the glycine took the wax, and very gently, or with a little firm attention to the wax, you can actually rub it down so that there's nothing coming up. And it gets a really nice look to it, a sheen. And then you can use it in some way where you might be working on building a collage, and you can tear out or cut out elements that then work with another piece. Piece of tracing. Let's see what I want to use for this one. Tracing. I have this lovely old belly dancer. I had this for a long time in my collection. It's just really sweet. And it's just one of those joyful dancer appeals. Let's see, I think purple would be nice. These also have the ability to be used in monoprints and jelly prints. you can just take your already drawn in piece and lay it on a jelly plate with some paint already brayered on. I think it conveys well and can be a lot of fun. And let's see. Here's one that's a water lily. So I think I'll use the black for now. I'll show a sample of how black can look though. Let's see. This is just a piece of black Saint Armand. And I use some gold brass rubbing wax crayon and then use watercolor on top of it to pull out color rather than have it be all black in the background. And then these are oil stick painted papers, these two, and I let them dry for like 4 months, although I think probably they were dry within a month. But then I was able to do these rubbings, and they're just really nice to have extra little pieces around that I keep in my collage montage design box. This one is a jelly print on antique paper, and then I did the rubbing on top of that. Here's a watercolor that's already done, and I think what I'll do is a different block. And so you get different textural qualities depending on the paper you're using. So that's why I recommend always buy a little extra of something if you think you're very attached to wanting to make sure it comes out a certain way. That way you can experiment with how well it will look. And I think the little bit of green I put in there looks good with the blue, allowing for just a mysterious enhancement. Here's another one. This one I use quite often for my antique jelly plate prints that are for paint box covers. And I thought I'd show that one here. So that's how that turned out. And this is on an old book plate with plenty of acrylic in the background, and did some fun pulling of the paper so that I got different textured layers. So what that looks like, I'll do another one. This will go onto a tin. kind of have to have a sense of where the designs are at when you're holding it so that you don't always get the crayon all over, which you can do, or it'll slide around too. But then sometimes just stopping and allowing for some open area so that it's not so enclosed and perfect. So like, there's this antique tree coming through, and I think it looks rather sweet. And it's the middle of the winter time. There's a broken branch on the ground. Here I have, well, besides that one, I'll do that in a minute, are some fabrics. This shows a piece of sari fabric, which had been imprinted with textile wood block. It's a very old piece, and I really love the quality of how it looks. It's an old one, and it's actually silver thread, not gold, but some of the finer ones were done with 24 karat gold thread, like this is, and I tend to keep a little bit of these things around. It's nice to just go through a piece of fabric and stitch in a few places that element of, oh, there's a little golden spot and it caught my eye. And then I've also used some cotton fabric, and the cotton fabric can be used putting on the same wax crayon, and then you can put it into a dye bath with other elements of leaves and collected botanicals that leave their mark and left in a hot pot. It'll just get a real rich fade into it. Now here are some more jelly pulled pieces. This one was done with indigo first, and then I put just a clear matte varnish on top of it and then pulled that. And this is from plate from Macbeth. I thought that looked kind of fun. Use the other side of this piece. Sometimes you have to directionally draw in or rub on the color, especially as the paper gets a whole lot thinner. So that's a very important thing to remember when collecting wood blocks or any elements for your design uses. So remember these two details. Happiness with results requires remembering heavy papers require a whiter cut design, and lighter paper is ideal for wood blocks cut with fine designs. Always have extra paper for determining what colors are best to use also. So I think that works quite well. I mean, this is the kind of thing where I could put it on the cutter, get some extra slices out of it, or I could just use it on a paint box, a tin like this, or a small book. It could be on a book cover. It could make it inside of a book and have extra notes about, well, I actually saw Macbeth. at a certain time in my life, and that was a lot of fun. Other additional fun things too are like this very inexpensive gold leaf, which one can buy on eBay. It's from a company called Tie Pants. And for $5 you get just a wonderful quantity of gold leaf that they themselves use on statues for blessing ceremonies in the Buddhist traditions. So I think you can see that quite well. So these are really fun when applying in things like just any amount of panache for a finished work. So a couple more here to show off. This one is a coat jacket. And an antique indigo dye I just thought was so gorgeous. And I'll probably put this one into one of my journals, which I'll show off later on. This is St. Armand paper, and so it's a bit heavier. It's 140 pounds. So this is when you get to find out how the quality of how wide the cut is on the block for using, or at least being able to get a very satisfactory mark. I might tear off part of it, or maybe not. This block is actually quite wonderful because of the archways that are in it, and it allows you to think in terms of, well, I could actually cut out the archways. And this one's more of a Beth. I kind of like that this one's falling apart, though. It'll be ideal in a journal. So you could cut those out and have some windows into some other artwork that might be viewed from another page. This one's very sweet. This one too. This one's a nice, thick, heavy end paper from an antique book. This crayon could probably go a lot darker, but because of the colors on this particular jelly print color, I'm not going to do it as heavy. But you can see you can get some very rich marks. Here's one. This is the Tibetan wedding stick. I think I'll do the fabric on this one. This one is a copper color, and this one's Abbey. This one I've had so long I don't even remember the name of the company fully. The stick has patterns which go all the way around and really make it interesting. You could actually just stick this into a dye bath at the end of getting it all on there and just be really satisfied with having some interesting color coming out. And then there's the back side. There. Some wonderful cutouts of what looks like angel warriors. I think they made biscuits off of these. Well, that's all for this evening, and I hope you enjoyed this segment of Antique Wax Rubbings, and I will also be showing some extra images after this video goes to post. I haven't been able to post these videos on Patreon like I would like to. For some reason, it's just not working, and I don't know why. But I will keep trying to do that. But until then, if I need to, I will send you a link to YouTube where you will be able to access it there. So thank you so much for joining this tier. There will be other impression pieces that I'll be showing later on. So, and each month I hope to be adding to the tiers and then also adding additional follow-ups of some of the special things that have gotten created so that you can see completed process. Thank you again, and I hope your evening and your day is great.